What's going on, everybody? Thank you all for joining me today. If you haven't already, please make sure you hit the like button and subscribe to the channel if you're new to the channel. And most importantly, please follow me on Telegram at TD Media Group to help circumvent YouTube shadow banning and social media censorship. And with the introduction out of the way, let's get into today's news. And today we have to speak on the parody news network known as MSNBC. Why are we speaking about MSNBC today? Well, let's take a look at this very angry tweet by Joe Rogan. As you can see here, the tweet reads, "What the F is this ish?" Now, what is he so mad about? Because you can see MSNBC is in his tweet here. Well, this is what he's mad about. And a lot of other people as well, including myself. Look at this disgusting headline by MSNBC. Laken Riley's killer never stood a chance. Really? Laken Riley's killer never stood a chance? And then look at the sentence beneath it. For all the political controversy surrounding Jose Ibarra, the outcome of this trial was never in doubt. So you're insinuating here that some way, somehow, the trial was somewhat unfair to Jose Ibarra, the killer of Laken Riley, by having a headline like this stating Laken Riley's killer never stood a chance given all of the political controversy surrounding the situation that occurred. Now, since then, MSNBC has gone on to change the headline, right, to "The guilt of Laken Riley's killer was never in doubt," but it's too late already because we know what you meant and we see what you are trying to do. Maybe any other news network could have gotten away with making a headline like that and saying, we just weren't thinking. But when it comes to MSNBC, we know who they are and we know how disgusting the network is, which is why I always refer to them as a parody news network. Now, once again, that article title reads here, where they changed it and updated, "The guilt of Laken Riley's killer was never in doubt." But when you read the sentence beneath, they slightly altered it to read as such. For all the political controversies surrounding Jose Ibarra, the case against him was always a simple one. But once again, it's too late. We already know what you meant, right? We already know what you meant. Now, something as disgusting as this isn't necessarily exclusive to MSNBC, because once again, they are who they are in terms of their hateful rhetoric that comes from that parody news network. But I want you to take a moment to listen to what this ABC News anchor had to say concerning the killing of Laken Riley and how he doesn't put the responsibility of her death on the Biden administration, which is where it belongs, because they intentionally created a migrant crisis that allowed Ibarra to come into the country. No, of course he doesn't do that. Who does he blame for the death of Laken Riley? He is going to insinuate that it's Donald Trump's fault, because of course everything is Donald Trump's fault. You wake up in the morning and stub your toe on the side of the bed, it's Donald Trump's fault. You break your favorite coffee mug while washing the dishes, it's Donald Trump's fault. You catch a flat tire on your way to work, guess whose fault it is? Of course, it's Donald Trump's fault. Everything is Donald Trump's fault, apparently including the killing of Laken Riley. Let's get into this disgusting clip right here.
This death of Laken Riley and the subsequent trial has essentially been a massive political lightning rod here in this country. And you said it there yourself, the president-elect campaigning on the death of Laken Riley and pointing to the current administration, saying that their laws and what they're calling failed policies contributed to Laken Riley's death. I want to remind you that Ibarra entered this country illegally in 2022, according to law enforcement officials, and he was paroled and released for further processing by ICE. And since that time he entered the country, he was arrested another time. Law enforcement officers saying that he was arrested in 2023 in New York City and charged with acting in a manner to injure a child less than 17, as well as a motor vehicle violation. But it's important to note that although there is very little evidence indicating a connection between immigration and violent crime. This is still something the President-elect Trump, several Republicans on the Hill wanted to essentially plant their flag on and point that to the current Biden administration. And we saw that even as early as President Biden's latest State of the Union address, where Georgia Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene infamously interrupted President Biden, forcing him to acknowledge the death of Laken Riley, something that President Biden did by holding up a pin in her during that State of the Union. But it is important to note that all of this vitriol that we're hearing from Republicans and President-elect Trump regarding the policies of the Biden administration, it's important to know that President-elect Trump did force Republicans to essentially tank a bipartisan border security bill that both sides of the aisle said would have essentially addressed border security and immigration issues, Kira.
If you want to understand why the legacy mainstream media press is dying the way that it is, and why people are flocking over to podcasts and YouTube channels like this, is because the way in which they continue to intentionally misguide the American people by outright lying to you, if not at the least misrepresenting and manipulating the facts of what actually happened and what's actually going on concerning the migrant crisis and why people like Jose Ibarra were able to come into the country. The migrant crisis, as I've said numerous times over, because it is an irrefutable fact, was created intentionally by Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. I'm not going to say anything more from this point on. I'm just going to let Joe Biden speak for himself.
Mr. Vice President, under the Trump administration, asylum has virtually ended. ICE detention centers are practically empty. Your new plan calls for reversing President Trump's harsh plan. But won't that restart a brand new border crisis? I mean, what would you do with all those people in camps now waiting in Mexico?
It will if we don't do it well. We don't reach out to the communities that are willing to, the charitable communities that will come in and help, and in addition to us spending millions of dollars providing for access for judges, access for asylum folks to be on the border, to move quickly. Because if we just say, okay, all done, I've withdrawn the order, you're going to have a crisis on the other side of the border as well.
I rest my case. What are we even talking about here right now? What are we even talking about here right now? The border was secure under Donald Trump. When Biden and Harris got into office, they literally created the migrant crisis, knowing that it would be chaos. And here you have Joe Biden in the flesh acknowledging that he knew it would be chaos if we don't do it right. They knew they weren't doing anything right, but they did it anyway. And it's led to the loss of life of so many people who should still be here but aren't, because of the mess that this man and Kamala Harris created, to which they would proceed to lie to you, Harris, Biden, and Alejandro Mayorkas, telling you for at least 2 years straight that the border was secure. And then after 2 years of lying to you, saying that the border was secure when it clearly wasn't, they would go on to lie to you and say, well, there's nothing we can do about it until we get the bipartisan bill passed. But then on election year, surprise, surprise, with executive action, Joe Biden essentially more or less closed the border, to which crossings dropped dramatically, meaning he could have always done this because he always had the executive power to close the border, but chose not to. Instead, they chose to lie to you and tell you that the border was secure when it wasn't. But once again, when in doubt, blame Donald Trump, right? And that's what you saw here with the man on ABC. And that's why these legacy media outlets are failing miserably. These people are disgusting, manipulative liars. You have MSNBC insinuating that an illegal immigrant murderer didn't receive a fair trial, and then that's followed up with an ABC News anchor insinuating that Laken Riley was murdered because of Donald Trump's negligence, when he's not the one who was in office. Biden and Harris were the ones that were in office, who literally created the migrant crisis, as Joe Biden just admitted to which they proceeded to lie to you to say that there was nothing they can do about it until it was election year. And now here we are, and here they are with blood on their hands, but trying to pass it off to Donald Trump. Once again, I rest my case. And with all that being said, that does it for today's news. Please make sure you hit the like button on your way out. Subscribe to the channel if you're new to the channel, and make sure you follow me on Telegram and Rumble at TD Media Group. Both the links to my Telegram and Rumble will be in the description box below and pinned in the comment section as well. Thank you all for your time, and until the next video, peace and have a great afternoon.